Committee. This planning meeting is being broadcast live over the internet and will be available to view online now and in the future. We welcome the use of the Welsh language at meetings. I have had no requests for people to speak Welsh today, so this meeting will be conducted in English only. Those attending in the chamber, please be aware that we are all on camera and you may be visible on screen when people around you are speaking, and please remember to speak clearly into your microphones. Committee members participating remotely, can you please refrain from using the chat function and instead use the raised hand icon to indicate when you want to speak. Please remember to keep your microphone muted when you are not talking. May I remind members that as per statutory guidance made under Section 4 of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011 and our formally adopted hybrid meeting policy, any member attending a meeting remotely must be able to be seen and heard by the members and officers who are attending the meeting, as well as by members of the public viewing the meeting. So can I ask that you all please use your cameras for the duration of the meeting? Thank you. Right, we'll move on to the agenda. Item 1, attendance and apologies. Rachel, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, I've received apologies from Councillor Mark Jones.
Thank you. Right, item 2, declarations of interest. Niall, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they have any interest to declare?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So if we can start then with Councillor Ashley.
None.
Councillor Best. Okay, we'll come back to Councillor Best. Councillor Evans.
None that I'm aware of.
Councillor Gordon.
Nothing from me.
Councillor Haller.
I have a personal non-prejudicial interest due to being a member of Pontypool Community Council, but I have a personal and prejudicial interest due to a close associate living in close proximity to the application. So I believe it would be for the best if I left the meeting.
Yep, that's fine. Noted. Councillor Gaynor James.
Yes, as a member of Pontypool Community Council.
Councillor John James.
Again, Pontypool Community Council.
Councillor Janet Jones.
None that I'm aware of now.
Yourself, Chair.
Nothing to declare.
Councillor Slade.
Nothing to declare.
Councillor Tew.
Nothing to declare.
Okay, and if we can just circle back to Councillor Best.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's a prejudicial interest. So.
Determine the application. So, because you've made some representations prior to the application coming to planning committee, it could be seen that you've actually predetermined it. So it may be best that you leave the meeting.
Yeah, so I'll be leaving the meeting for the item.
Right, thank you, Niall. We go on to agenda item 3, minutes of the Planning Committee from the 18th of September 2024. Members, could you possibly state whether you have anything to raise in relation to the minutes? If not, I'll take them as approved. Can't see any hands up. Any hands up in the chamber? Yes?
Yes, Chair, we do have.
Right.
Chair, it's Polly Ellis.
Yes. Yes.
In the minutes, I'm referred to as Chief Legal Officer, and my job title is actually Head of Legal Services. So if they could just be amended, that would be great.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Right. Head of Legal Services. I'll write it down, I won't forget, will I? Right. Thank you. Right, I didn't see any hands up, so we'll take the meeting as approved. Thank you. Right, we'll go to agenda item 4, planning application 24P0101 FUL, and its creation of 2 family pitches for Romany travellers with 1 static caravan, 1 touring caravan and day/utility room per pitch, together with improvements to the existing access and ecological enhancements at Springfield Yard, Plascoed Road, Pontnewydd, Pontypool. So now can I ask Justin Jones, Principal Planner, to present the report?
Yep, thank you, Chair. Good morning, Committee.
Morning.
Okay, Committee Chair, as the Chair has already said, this is a full plan application for the creation of 2 family pitches, 1 static caravan and 1 touring caravan and a day room per pitch. For the benefit of committee members, they will be aware that a committee site visit was undertaken on the 30th of September of this year, where those members that were present noted the character and context of the site, but we'll go through that again in this presentation. So, as committee can see, here is an aerial shot of the site, and you can see the context of the main road, Plascoed Road. There's the river, and you can see the very rural nature of the area. You will note, Chair, Committee, the row of terrace houses and other detached houses in the area. If we look at the site looking from east to west, so this is looking from those terraced houses down the road to the site, Committee can see that part of the work has already been undertaken in terms of the fencing and that there are caravans on site. But what committee members will note is that there is a pavement which is adopted and there are lighting columns upon the poles. Again, this is looking from the site and from the entrance back towards the terrace properties. So that's looking east. Again, you'll notice the pathway, the site of the fencing and the access road. And you'll notice the trees and the existing environment. So this look at the site again. As you can see, the gates are set back, the fencing is there, and you can see one of the caravans. You can see the portaloo. There's the other caravan, and you'll note the surfacing of the site. So again, this is looking at the other part of the site in the context of that. The committee will note that beyond the boundary are existing trees. This land, for the benefit of committee, is also under the ownership of the applicant. It goes down towards the river, and it is very steep and slope. So again, this is looking in the westerly direction, so that this is going out of the site towards Down Road and Pantycourse. And you'll note the fence line, the pavement, the setback, and the context of the road. Again, this is looking easterly from the site, so you can see the context of it in terms of how it sits within the environment. Again, the closest neighbour, as you can see, is the bungalow here, and that is just put it into context of where it is in relation to the site. But members can see that the site is flat and level, and there has been some made-up ground in this area. The other part of the considerations, Chair Committee, is that this is the application site here, and as you can see, it is within a coal risk area. So as a result, a coal mining risk assessment was undertaken and has been assessed by the Coal Authority, who raised no objections. But in summary, the coal risk assessment concludes that there are no shallow mining beneath the site. There is a solitary horizontal mine entrance known as a level within the site boundary, approximately there. An underground roadway then connects the entrance to workings underneath the hillside on the other side of Classic Road. The entrance was located by the consultant, and it's approximately 15 metres from the site boundary of Classic Road and was found to have collapsed and no effect on the ground stability of the site. The entrance was located by digging a 7-metre trench across the site with a large 14-ton excavator. So we're satisfied, Chair Committee, that the development can be accommodated on the site, and there are conditions that members will note on the recommendations for further investigation work. But based upon the submission, coal risk assessment and the advice of the Coal Authority, there is no objection to the proposal in principle. This is to show in terms of flooding and concern of flooding. You'll note that there is the river that is significantly below the site, and these purple patches show the flood risk zones as according to the dam maps which form part of TAN 15, and it's considered that the site is free from flooding. If we look at the proposal itself now, Chair, as members will appreciate, this is part being implemented and obviously part to be implemented if approved. So if we go through the site, so these rectangles are the proposed static caravans. The blue boxes are the proposed day rooms, and we'll see some more details of those in a minute. You will note that there is one touring caravan, but members will recall at the very beginning that this description did allow for 2 per plot, and we believe that the other one could be accommodated there if need be, but the applicant at this moment in time only requires the one touring caravan. You'll also note, Chair Committee, in that we are also seeking approval for ecological enhancement as required by Planning Policy Wales. And those enhancements are proposed trees located along here, new trees within the site. There are grass areas to be proposed and additional trees here. And the siting of these trees and the grass areas are designed and located to interact with the ecosystem of the existing wider environment, so there is that connectivity going forward. And there is an area of artificial hybernaculum with green connection from the hedgerow. It's taken me all week to say hybernaculum, so I'm glad I got that right. So again, that ecological enhancement has been considered by the borough ecologist team, and they're comfortable that that can be achieved. One of the issues, and obviously you will see, Chair Committee, that there is a condition about landscaping, is obviously the species of trees. Broadly fine, but we want to see some more native trees to go in there, and that can be achieved, and they won't take up any more soil volume or rooting spaces than these trees proposed. You'll also note the proposed parking. There's 3 standard car parking spaces, and there is a space for a larger commercial vehicle. But committee members will, you'll also be aware that there is conditions about there to be no commercial activity on the site, but as with any residential property, it isn't unusual for a work van to come to your place and to be parked. It's the key point is the activities, and we've restricted that if this application is approved. One of the points is obviously the junction, and that has been raised as concern by residents and has been looked at by the Council's Highways Department. And there's 2 key points on this. One is the proposed footway and interlinking with that adopted highway, and that is proposed here. The Highways Authority have looked at that and are comfortable that that creates a safe refuge area for those people to leave the site by non-car means. The other issue was obviously visibility display, as we saw on the wider picture, Chair. We are on a bend and it is an S-bend road, and concern has been raised about that. The visibility display is set by standards. In this case, there's prescribed standards of DB32, which seeks a visibility display of 70 metres either way, but that can be lowered depending on the speed of the road. The road of this is reduced down to 20. I accept the point that has been raised that people may go faster than that, but you can't design in for people undertaking illegal activities. So based upon the legal speed limit of the road, is considered that setback, and the visibility display that we see here has been considered by the highways officer and has found to be acceptable. Chair Committee, you recall that we're also given approval for the day rooms, and it's important, consider the nature of the development and the advice within Welsh Government guidance on gypsies and traveller sites, that certain provisions are provided along with the caravan, and that's these day rooms. These day rooms serve, as you can see, as the bathroom, a kitchen area, and there would also be washing facilities in there. On this as well, Chair, you might not be able to note, but there is also ecological enhancements in terms of a bat and a bird box that will go on those buildings. Again, the ecologist is happy with that. The siting and design of those buildings are considered appropriate within the context. The other point that is also seeking permission is the CCTV camera. It requires permission because of its height, and it is located at the back of the site. And critically, it only overlooks the site. It doesn't overlook neighbours' property, so there's no issues in terms of undermining privacy of the adjoining neighbour. So that's the end of the presentation. Committee will note their representations and happy to answer any questions that committee may have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Justin. Before we go into questions, we have a speaker today. So I would like to invite Lynn Garnett, who wishes to speak in support of this planning application, to come down to the table at the front of the chamber, and Polly Ellis, Head of Legal Services, will time you. As you know, Ms. Garnett, you have 5 minutes to speak, and please start when you are ready.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lynn Garnett. I'm a senior practitioner in participation, representation and engagement for the Gypsy and Traveller community. I work for Travelling Ahead, which is a Welsh Government-funded project. I commend this local authority, and especially the planning officer, for the production of this report, which is very fair, even-handed, takes into account all relevant legislation and approves this site for these families. I would just like to state that I'm not sure if the committee are aware of the terrible situation for gypsies and travellers who live on local authority sites, especially in my experience in South Wales. It's very poor quality accommodation, and it's quite often very poorly managed. And as such, members of the community who I support want their main objective is generally to buy their own land, create their own site, no cost to the public purse, and just to provide somewhere safe and secure for them and their families to live. As we're aware of the dire situation for gypsy and traveller families as regards health and educational outcomes in general, these are all improved by the provision of better quality sites. So I commend this local authority for coming up with this report, for approving this site, which is in a sustainable location. It is a brownfield site, so it's making a site that wasn't very nice before into something that will be lovely when the family develop it when they have planning permission, and they'll be able to develop it in the way that they plan. So it will be an improvement to the area, and also for this local authority, it ensures that you are actually fulfilling your obligations under the Housing Act to provide quality accommodation for travellers. This is something that is sadly lacking and something that a lot of local authorities are shying away from. So I commend you for approving this planning application in principle, and I hope that the Planning Committee will follow the recommendations of its officer, who has thoroughly evaluated this project in light of all current gypsy and traveller legislation. And this is a specialised area of planning at which your local authority has appointed someone specially to look at this subject. So it's very important that any objections to this would be serious material considerations, but these have all been considered by your planning committee, so your planning officer. So it's very important to consider that, because what is happening in the planning system is that lots of gypsy and traveller planning applications are rejected, but then at appeal, I would say 90% of these are granted, and this causes long delays. It's clogging up the planning system. It causes a massive amount of stress for these people and these families who want nothing more to provide for themselves in a way which is culturally appropriate for them. And also to be able to contribute in that these families will be paying council tax, they'll be able to work, their children will be able to attend school. All of this, if people are allowed to have a decent site. So this is a real serious consideration. In the Senedd report of 2022, the Welsh Government recommended that local authorities fully consider their duties and their responsibilities to all members of their community, and that includes gypsies and travellers. So it's important that this is considered when you are coming to your decision today. I would also like to say that perhaps the number of objections was engendered by the fact that this local authority revealed confidential information about this family that then was taken by the press. And without that, if that information had been kept confidential, then I don't think those number of objections would have been there. And maybe that's demonstrated by the fact there's no one here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Garnett. Would you like to go back to your seat? And I'll wait for you to make your way back before resuming the meeting. If someone could confirm when Miss Garnett goes back to her seat to me, please.
Chair, Miss Garnett's back in her seat now.
Thank you. Thank you, Polly. I don't see any hands up questions. Oh, there's one hand gone up. Councillor Steve Evans, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've probably got a couple. Reading in a report, there are concerns about water pressure to the site and a possible overloading of the drainage system. What are we doing to sort of accommodate that? If it's a thing locally, you know, what are we doing? And the other concern I got is, are we in talking to the coal board, because there are concerns written in the report regarding mine shafts and everything, and that particular site used to be, you know, used for that type of thing for coal mining. So I am a bit concerned purely on a planning perspective that, you know, there may be foundation issues. Anybody answer that, please?
Justin, could you answer, please?
Yes, certainly, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Evans, for your questions. In terms of drainage and water overload, we have consulted with Welsh Water and they have raised no objections to the proposal. They are satisfied that the water pressure can accommodate the proposal, and so can the foul from the site be also accommodated. In relation to coal, as I've said in my committee presentation, it is recognised that it's in an area of coal risk. An appropriate coal risk assessment has been undertaken and reviewed by the Coal Authority, who have raised no objection to the proposal, and subject to the conditions for some further investigation, they're comfortable that the development can be accommodated on the site, and that investigation is only required because of the day rooms and the foundations. But based upon that coal risk assessment, it is believed that it can be accommodated.
Right. Are you satisfied, Councillor Evans?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, because of the previous mining works, whether it was acceptable to have that there. That was my concern,
Yes,
on a planning perspective, yeah.
Yeah, it's been confirmed now for you. So, next one I got is Councillor Carl Gordon.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Justin, I note from the report that the two ward councillors in their representations have indicated some issues around the consultation with residents, and not everybody had received a letter, apparently. Could you provide some colour around that, about the extent of the consultation, whether we're satisfied that we consulted with everybody who needed to be consulted? I mean, I further note that there have been a number of representations, so clearly people were aware of this, but I'm sort of concerned that the two ward councillors have raised this concern. So I'd just like some more information on that, please, if I may.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. As committee members will be aware, their Development Management Procedure Order, and particularly Article 12, highlights what is required to be done, and that is, as a minimum, there is a requirement to notify neighbouring properties and a site notice as appropriate. Now, as you saw on the aerial photographs, there aren't any immediate neighbours as such, but those that were, such as the bungalow next door, they were notified, as was a site notice put up where the car park opposite the terrace properties. So they would have been able to have seen that. And as you've quite rightly highlighted, Councillor, given the level of representation that has been received from a wide area, including those terrace properties, it would be reasonable, I would suggest, Chair, that those local residents have been informed of it. And as you were also aware, Chair, that the local ward councillors also had local meetings with residents where they expressed their views, and that has been articulated in their representations that have been received by the ward councillors. So I would suggest, Chair, that we have met our requirements of the regulations.
Right. Is that okay, Carl? You're satisfied? Thank you. We've got Councillor Stuart Ashley now.
I'm going to ask sustainability and tree planting. This site obviously looks, but by the look of it, is tidied up considerably from what it was, and obviously, from a point of view of objections, if the sustainability issues, tree planting, and the innovative thing you suggested, I couldn't get my mouth around it either. I'm just wondering if you could describe what it is, Justin. It does look. Bearing in mind there's also quite a lot of nature around this area of the person's taking the site on his own. Could you outline a bit more detail what they intend to do and how we might be monitoring that or not? Because obviously this site's a bit bare as it is at the moment, judging by the pictures, and I'm assuming that there's wildlife up there as well.
Yeah, I'll answer the question as best I can, Councillor. As you saw in the presentation, the sighting of the trees and the grass areas and the hibernaculum is located so that the site doesn't look inwards, but it also looks outwards. There is no indication of species that rose within the site, and obviously that would is what you'd expect given its former brownfield use and storage use. But as you rightly said, is that it's important that the ecological enhancement on site also talks to the wider area and interlinks with it to create that resilience to the ecosystem that we're required to do. It's also, especially the trees along the road frontage, it's important that they also provide a level of privacy for the future occupiers as well. And one of the points that has been raised is about the natural greenness of the site and the wider area, and we saw that on the aerial photographs, Chair. And obviously this links in with that. In terms of monitoring, as you've seen, Chair Committee, there are conditions that require some changes to those trees, as I said in my presentation, to become more native, and that can be accommodated, and those will need to be discharged. You'll see on the conditions, Chair, that there are time limits for that submission, so we will be monitoring that and making sure that those submissions are done and are implemented in accordance with those plans, as is the case with all planning applications, Chair.
Could I ask supplementary to that, if I may?
Yes.
What is that thing? I can't pronounce it. Do you know what it is? But I'm intrigued, I must admit. The hyper... I can't even say the word even.
You're just trying to get me to say it again, aren't you, Councillor?
No, sorry, Justin, I'm not. I'm just intrigued as to what we're talking about.
This is a hibernaculum. It's just a big, I don't know how you describe it, to say just a big...
Yeah. It can be a number of different things, but it could be a pile of logs and twigs.
Oh, so we're talking insects, are we?
Within it, yes. So it's a fancy word for a lot of twigs and logs. So it encourages a lot of animals to hibernate and to actually use that as an area.
Oh no, brilliant!
And that's why when you look at that plan, thank you, it is where it's located, where it is, so that it integrates with the existing ecology. It's not much point having it in the middle of the site. It's on the fringes, so that it will encourage the existing habitat to go around there, and it links in with that grass area that is also along the boundary as well.
You also said that the owners own other bits of the ecology, presumably down to the river. Is that included in this, or is that separate property?
No, so the plan, let's see if I can get it up for you, Chair, so you can have a look. It is a black screen, yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry, Chair, I can't get the...
No, don't worry about it.
But anyway, the land that goes down to the river is unaffected by this proposal. So it stays as it is. And I think that's also important, that the existing habitat isn't altered unnecessarily. And that is what this seeks to do.
So when you say about British natives, rather, was there any proposal to put non-British natives in there?
The numbers stay the same as shown on the plan. It's just a substitution of the species type. So, for instance, it's proposed approximately 22 trees will go around the site. Obviously, there'll have to be some flexibility and give on that. to make sure they have the routing area, and so that they don't compete with each other. So it is around about that 22, maybe fewer than that.
That sounds a sizable amount in that site. Thank you there.
Right, thank you. Niall, is there anyone in the chamber wishing to ask a question?
No, Chair, we have no questions here.
Right, thank you. Right, if there are no other questions, would a member, can I ask a member to move a proposal? Carl?
I'll second that as well.
Well, I think I'd like to hear Carl's proposal first.
Yeah, thanks. If there's no further questions, I'm happy to move to the vote, and I propose we take the vote, Chair.
Right. So are you going along with the planner's suggestion?
Yes.
You are?
No,
right.
I'll second that, Chair.
Right, it's been seconded. Right. Niall, could you please ask members in alphabetical order to state whether they are for, against or are abstaining?
Yes, so if we could start with Councillor Ashley.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Gordon.
For.
Councillor Gaynor-James.
For, providing conditions are kept and is kept monitored, please.
Councillor John James.
For.
Councillor Janet Jones.
For Niall, with the conditions suggested by our officers.
Yourself, Chair.
For.
Councillor Slade.
For.
And Councillor Tew. For. That's unanimous, Chair.
Yes, that's unanimous. So this application has been approved. Right, I'd like to thank everyone for your attendance and your contributions, and I'll now close the meeting.